Contemporary people have a lot of associations with sticks. You know, we have a kind of an atavistic, deep-rooted knowledge about sticks. We all came from a hunting and gathering culture, ultimately. And if you see that played out in children, they know everything about sticks. It's a weapon, a tool, a piece of a wall, drumstick, house. This helps kind of enliven those fantasies and makes this work and this kind of material more dear. As I started working with this material, it was available. Saplings are really a product of urbanization. It takes kind of intervention by man to make a field of saplings. I always say that if you want to know who owns something, just get out of your car and start your chainsaw and set it down behind the car. There'll be someone there immediately.
Maybe what we ought to do, we need to cut 50 bit larger ones, and so maybe that's one thing we could work on.
Okay. You're catching me on my first day. This is out here gathering the material. We have to get material to work with. I've often used volunteers in my work. Part of it started when partnering with organizations, and we had the site say, well, we'll help you gather.
So you can partner up with somebody, they can cut, you can lay by. I would just make piles as I went, and then we can pull them out later.
What it is I'm building a work, I need help. People are willing to throw their best energies into it, and we, over a period of time, produce inadvertently a sense of community. I've been lucky to work in many different places. You know, I've had to gather in Holland, where we took bridges and threw them out over the causeways as we went out on the dikes to gather willow. I've, worked in France, where we gathered material behind a sewage treatment plant. I've stopped on the interstate and yelled across the fence, "Don't cut it, I'll come back." In fact, a person who was very generous has allowed us to come here and gather on her personal land.
I think this project in particular, when we need a large volunteer force to make this installation happen, it's really part of the experience to have people have access to the artist and work with him and really have that investment in the final piece is exciting to see.
For something like this, you could take the whole thing, and then for a slightly bigger, you could take the top, but it's not that picky. Okay. So whatever it is you kind of decide to do about it. Okay. Like these are definitely too big here, so I might just go up down, like about that much. Because what we'll do is we need some small to hook the whole thing together. Gotcha. We got all those long ones for outlining lines, but we're going to have to use all of these to make the thing stay together.
The number of volunteers that we've had and had to turn away because there's been such interest, that's a great thing for the museum, and it's really great to see that interest and excitement about contemporary art.
We're going to take it back to the site and transport it on a big truck. In this case, it's got to be treated for infestation of pests. Any kind of pest has got to be dealt with. Sometimes it's a serious fire retarding situation. You have to fire retard before it can go in a building.
Patrick normally works outdoors, creates large-scale outdoor installations, but he's working inside the museum at the Gibbes, which is a little different. He's done several indoor installations, but the space will be a lot tighter than he's accustomed to working with.
Yeah, well, working in a museum is interesting because of the soundscape.
This idea of bringing artists to the space, of having visiting artists at the museum, and really having that engagement and that investment in contemporary art is a direction that we're going and that we hope to continue to go.
At the Gibbes, the first level of work is where you get your volunteers and yourself. You'll try to do a structural layer. And so it's like making a canvas and then drawing on it. I'm often use mimicry in terms of reflecting bits and pieces of the architecture around me. The second level is appliquing a kind of look onto it. And that's really about drawing. If you hit a piece of paper with a pencil, you strike it with one weight and finish off with another. Basically, you're making tapered lines. If you notice, all the sticks are tapered, and so when you organize those tapers in one direction, you get a sense of implied motion. When I first started working in the early 80s, sculpture didn't have much play. It was really painting and drawing that was the most important, and the reason was that critics, perhaps viewers, thought that they got closer to the real thing in a painting because you felt like the artist was struggling. I had made a big effort to find a way of working that does allow moment-by-moment interplay, that you really have to look into your surface and try to understand what's going on and try to pull the best out of it. Making sculpture, making forms, trying for the quixotic nature of a painting, there's still an ongoing narrative where you're trying and maybe you're not at your peak. Well, you've got to try to pull the best out of it. I'd like people to interact with the piece along the base, but from above have a kind of sense of kind of a natural expression of flow, and maybe having something that touched the wall and flashed up here, and maybe like nature taking over again. You know, the museum took over the ground. There once was trees, and now the trees are coming back to reassert themselves.
I think one of the greatest things about Patrick's work is that it is so accessible. It's accessible and it's fun.
Inadvertently, what's happened through my work is that I represent making in a positive way, and I really intercede for the arts, and I demystify the process. Something is a bit sweeter when it is temporary, and there's a kind of fragility to this material that you long to have exist a bit longer. Art often exercises a part of you really didn't know you had and really extends your ability to feel. I think the temporary nature of things tends to redirect the energy of the viewers back to the most appropriate place. Not that we bought something and we're going to sell it later, but we went there and we were so overwhelmed we couldn't stand it. We just loved it.